Hey everybody, this is Davis Peng, writer for Fantasy Six Pack and Stochastic, and we are on another episode of Road to 150. And with me, as always, the owner of the channel, your favorite, the ever so dope, Hope. How you doing today, Hope?
I'm doing good, Davis. Don't seem so sad to say that. Jeez.
It's everyone's favorite, man. I'm just saying. I don't know. Everyone says, "Oh, Davis is on Hope's channel. Davis is on Hope's stream." No, I Josh. I kid. It's fun. And like it's your channel, and you are the ever so dope Hope. How you doing? But we have no draft today, and I'm sorry. There's nothing for us to do draft wise. I don't think you.
We can't do another cash game. I just can't. I can't do it.
I cannot. Right now for Superflex, I gotta get one QB mine going. But we do have a couple things we want to talk about. We have a lot to go off of, and what do you think? What's the first topic you want to tackle?
Let's hop into the BBM stuff. We talked about, we had a lot of theories and stuff we thought the last couple weeks. We got a little bit more concrete information on prize pool and first place prize, and so we can kind of speculate on what we think that's going to look like. But what was your first initial reaction? 3 mil to first. It's awesome. What was your first reaction to that?
My first reaction was, whoa, what am I going to do when I win? What am I going to do when I win? Which I think is probably not the right thing to start off with, but I know people have talked about it. That there's a chance that they couldn't go as high as that. So maybe they found a way to, which is, great for UD, like expanding.
Right.
We knew for sure though that it was going to be a flat number, right? It wasn't going to be like 2.3 or maybe 2.5 because it could look cute that way, but I'm glad they found a way to get to 3. That's a good right off the bat. I think that's amazing because you want to keep pushing the envelope as much as you can. I do think though at some point that is going to be tough to have higher numbers because then you're more people to fill the contest, more ways to spread the prize structures. But we'll see. But screw it. I want to be worth, like as Stephanie says, 1.5 cranes. All right, like that's what I want. I want to be 3 Liams, 1.5 cranes.
Don't we all?
15 Justin Herzigs. Like that's the goal.
I love in our group chats. Our immediate, like everyone in there who works a day job was like, "Yeah, we're still quitting our job if this happens." But
well, mine's a little bit worse.
Talking about all the stuff we would do and maybe do for fun if we won something like that. But it's exciting to think about. Terry, this is what I want to get to next. Terry's talking about wants to know how many would be in the final. So I saw some people do some math and talk about, with the percentage of rake and everything like that, that the sizing of the contest makes sense to have. And this is a guess, we don't know. We haven't heard from anyone. But the math worked out to like 675,000 entrants to make the rake work with first place compared to what it was last year. And then kind of how it was last year when it was about 470,000 and the final was 470. I think we would be looking at about a 670 person final. I'm thinking somewhere in the 600 is what we're going to get for the final this year. Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. And then I know that David, Fantasy Pros, put that out too. Exact. Yeah, he put it out, and he was like, oh, that's just an approximate number. And I was like, that's a very good approximate. Like, that's ridiculous. So I think he's correct in that regard. It's probably going to be something like that. I do think we'll get into that, but flatter rate's probably going to occur. I don't think you're going to get 1,000 this time for just making finals. I think you might get a little bit more. Hopefully. Like, I would like to see a little bit more money for making finals. I'm just trying to think what I would do if I win. It's going to be very interesting when I work at the movie theaters in the future, just ripping tickets. Like, they don't even know I'm a millionaire.
Yeah. A lot of people were talking about stuff. I think I said I would just be like usually it's an old man at the golf course who gets everybody starting. That would be a fun job for me as a person who loves golf.
I would work at Top Golf if I could. I tell you all the time. Like, I want to be the Top Golf guy, and they'd be like.
So another question would be, how much of the prize pool do you think is going to go to the regular season, and how do you think that's going to be broken up?
I mean, we know it's 12. I definitely don't believe we're going to see $1 million to the top person anymore. We've had that in the past. That when they brought it up, why did they do it last year versus this year? It was a big marketing thing.
Yeah.
And can we say that? Yeah, we say that. I think it's a big marketing thing. And then at that point, it's probably gonna be more spread, right? They got enough backlash from many 101 influencers of, hey, like this sucked, or this felt bad, or oh god, I'm second. I have to tell my wife I can't buy her a new house, like things like that. Like it really sucks, So I think we're gonna see like
Right.
maybe more, a little bit more money to the people that finish out of their pod. We're gonna see maybe the top 100 or the top 50 see some cash, because the top 500 was fun to look at.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. The whole top 500, even if it was a smaller amount,
Yeah,
because like to be in the top 500 of a 670,000 person
1,000.
contest, like I think that yeah, having like the whole top 500 get. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers around, like $1,000, whatever. That'd be 500,000 the prize pool. I haven't run the numbers on what makes sense on all that, but I think that would be so cool. Like, for as big as the leaderboard as you're following, like it would be cool to like look each week and see like, oh, I'm in the top 500 and it actually meant something. I mean, I know you could still look at it and then only pay the top 100 of that, but I don't know.
I
I'm
know one
I'm all for
thing.
more payouts.
I know one thing was that they said, hey, the rate is probably going to be 11.3%. That's standard. But here's the thing. It might not be 11.3. It might even be less. Like UD doesn't make all their money from these tournaments, right? They make money from other ways. So it's about getting people to play on their platform. So maybe one of the things they pushed this year, it's like, hey guys, it's no longer 11.3, it's like 8. And that goes back to the prize pool to do a little bit more fun things. Like I said, who knows? But yeah, I think like if you're asking who gets money, I think maybe the top 100 get money or top 200 get money, but you still have the top 500, because then at least when you're in the top 500, you feel like you can be in the top 2. And I think that's going to be great. So we'll see how that goes. And I do believe that it's going to be a windfall, though. It's not going to be an even amount. It's got to be, if you're number one, you're number one. You should be receiving more than 1K.
You mean in the regular season?
Yeah, regular season.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. If you're
that,
like the best team,
if
that's
you're the best
true.
team, like it's gonna be good times. And maybe there's something else that goes along. I'm hoping, and this is just because it's personal to me. I want a poker thing where it's called the bad beat. All right, like what a bad beat is, Hope?
I think I understand the concept, but you can, explain it.
Bad beat's basically like if you had like a full house of jacks or higher, but you lost to a better hand than that, right? The odds of you ever losing to that hand is like, yeah, right. They usually give that person like a ton of money. Like they give that person money, not the actual guy who beats him. So I want a bad beat in lobby. Like if you lost to the champion in that specific lobby, and people go like, what are the odds? Well, story, I lost to Liam on his championship team. I was in the draft where he won. So therefore, like I would love a bad beat lobby. I would like to be the guy. So that's what I would want.
How does that be determined though? Like what do you mean? Like what's the timeline?
Like the team that wins, the 11 other people in that lobby should get something. And that would be hilarious to me.
I don't know how you do that.
The table out when they're in poker. So the whole table gets paid out if a bad beat occurs. So like it wouldn't say like you all get a ton of cash, but like $50 or $100 would be hilarious to be part of that lobby that lost to the champion.
Oh, you mean like when it's all over, go back and look at the draft
and be like the guys who lost in that lobby, because you lost the first place. Like that's pretty funny.
Like, I wasn't following, but now I'm following. I was like, wait, what do you mean? Are you paying out all 11 of the other people who don't make it out of the pod? I get you at the end. I think that's funny.
It would be hilarious. Like it just, I don't know. It's super random, and it would apply to 0.001% of the field. But I think it is like a funny thing to be like first loser. Like the first loser was that like group, and you will be like, what are the odds? Well, like I said, I was actually in lobby with Liam when I lost to him, or everybody lost to him. But I think that's just one of those funny things. I've been pitching for a while. Yeah, see, like it's super goofy. But like payout portion, we're definitely not gonna see $1 million. Might see 50K. And I think that's fair. Like I would, no harm, no foul, someone gets 50K for being first in the season.
Yeah, I'm probably even 100. I would bet.
Steph, it's funny. It still happens to you. It did. Like I tell him all the time when I was like, yeah, I took it in the face, and people make fun of me for it every year. They're like, you enter lobbies of Davis because like because you're gonna win.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's something I never considered. I kind of like that. Any other wrinkles you think we'll see from the payout structure? Anything else at all? Or you think after the regular season payout. The rest of the playoffs will be kind of just standard what it
I
normally
think
is.
as of
What do
right
you
now,
think
I think it's gonna
second's
be.
going to be?
I
You
think
think
you
it's going
can
to be
get.
2?
I think you
Or,
can get creative. It's just hard.
yeah,
I think it's really hard to get creative because it's like, what can you really do? There
right.
isn't no bounty system. Like,
You don't think they'll mess with the playoff format either, right? Like
I don't
cumulative
think they're gonna
points.
mess with the playoff format. I
I don't
I
either.
do believe there's a shot that they might make that finals bigger,
Make the finals
bigger than
bigger?
670. Right?
Hmm.
Some people felt really burned by because last year, the year before, it was two. I think like one and two they'd advance. This year they switched it to two advance, one advance. For all you know, it could be two advance the way through. Like big board superflex right now. It's
Right.
2 superflex. So maybe there's a chance that they make it everyone advances to finals and you're facing 1,200 people now.
I
And
don't think
allow
they'll do that. I think I would almost say I almost know they're not going to do that. Like I think there's been enough hints that they don't want to make the final seem like it's just impossible to win. Like you want to get to the final, like you want it to be so big that you think you still like legitimately can win. And like 670 is kind of at that line. Like, I mean, let's be honest, like the DraftKings final, what was it, like 900, 1,000? Like that's truly feels random. I mean, 670 is going to be a lot if that's truly
Yeah.
what it is. So I get what you're saying, but like I don't think they're going to go and double that.
You
I don't.
think they push? I mean, what else can they really do then, right? I mean, could they push the playoffs earlier? I feel like there's going to be
No, I mean,
something.
I think there might be a little something. Yeah, I hope they don't mess with the playoff format though.
That's
Like
so
that's what.
Chris G agrees on that one. I think I'm going to be a playoff, like an earlier playoff week. I actually think there's a chance at that. But weren't there bye weeks in week 14 though? Pretty sure. So that's probably not the
There
case.
were bye weeks in week 14.
So like that's probably not going to be the case. I thought about that too because I was like, you could because it would make eliminations a little bit better and it can make the field smaller. But if they're
Yeah,
going to push bye weeks that far out, probably not the case.
a 2 week playoffs.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. That would give like people who quote unquote drafted the better team a better chance. Um,
my
I don't
cat
know.
wants to
It's
hang out.
fun. Oh,
She wants to
it's
hang out.
it's it's fun though. It's so exciting. I'm sure we'll get another teaser tomorrow and then another one on draft day. So this has been fun to kind of get something dropped like each day as to what it might be. I like this a lot.
All right.
Our 2 week championship. How would you feel about that if week 16 and 17 it was
How
the
would the payout go
championship?
for that?
Yeah, I
Or
don't know.
just like
That
just no
was
playoffs? They just two like. That'd be
then it
crazy.
might be a bigger final if it was a 2 week.
Oh, I mean like a cumulative. So people have pushed for a cumulative championship where you
Yeah,
get all eliminated and this becomes a cumulative at the all together.
I don't
That
love
could
that.
be a thing. I feel some people feel better about that. I say
I think
some.
we've heard enough of that. Like they've talked about not wanting to make the final too big. That like I think we're gonna get that to be normal.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to the
Regular
next
season
one.
total.
So one of the things that we were talking about is having fun. Everyone's talked about the draft and hey, how do we get more like who's going to be the secret pickups and things like that. So we did big board, we did super flex, and if you've been following us since the first episode, you'll know that we talked about the same players a few times. But we're going to talk about some player takes that I think that are different than we've done the entire season so far or off season. We're going to talk about at least 3 picks from our quarterbacks, 3 from our running backs, 3 for receivers, and then maybe 2 tight ends, maybe 1. Tight end's a little bit harder to have takes on. So right off the bat, Hope, who are our quarterbacks that you're a little bit interested in taking that we haven't talked about on stream yet?
Yeah, we haven't talked about a couple of these guys a lot, and it's gross to say, and like I don't enjoy, Deshaun Watson, but I think he's a guy that is going at QB9 in the big board. He's kind of like after the elite tier of QB, and we've seen what he can do on the field when he's fully healthy. He's got tons of weapons around him, and he's someone that you can easily envision being in the top 5 next year, I think, or at least finishing top 5. So he's my first one. Would be Deshaun. And to go along with that, I'll go ahead and hit my first tight end because it's funny. Like me and Davis were doing this list. Like I can't help but like stacking so much that like I was immediately drawn So like, well, because I like Njoku, and I think Deshaun is a good bet for fantasy to be someone who could outperform his ADP. So he's my first quarterback.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
quarterback
and
9
then
right
I have
now,
Njoku at tight end as well.
and which is funny because he's also tight end 9. So
Yeah,
quarterback 9, tight end 9. Yeah, you probably didn't take a ton of them in the big board. Maybe you were thinking about maybe adding them up now that we kind of have a better
yeah,
idea
and
of what the NFL's
like
gonna look
Elijah
like.
Moore trade, that's a really big positive for me. I still like Elijah Moore. You're making the point before we started the show that wide receiver core is a little bit congested with, Elijah Moore, DPJ, knowing who's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets. Like, I still just believe in Elijah
Cooper,
Moore. Well, yeah, Cooper's going to be out there,
Cooper,
but I'm talking
and
about the second one.
yeah.
Um, I'm just still a big believer in Elijah Moore, the talent, so I'm not too concerned about that. And I think they're gonna pass a good bit as well this year. I know they still have Nick Chubb and like they're not gonna abandon the run, but I do think they're gonna let it fly with Watson. I mean, they paid him all that money, and so yeah, Deshaun and Njoku are on my list of people I want to target a little bit more in drafts moving forward.
I mean, honestly, you say 2 receiver set, but it might be a 3. Like you think about that
Well, that's
division,
yeah,
right? Like that division has the Bengals, which teams like to copycat. They're like, hey, if we need to beat these guys, we need to do it better, a better version of them, right? Like they ran a 3 wide receiver set for the last 2 years with Joe Burrow. Deshaun Watson obviously was added because they needed quarterbacks that could compete. And then you're talking about even the Steelers. The Steelers ran a lot of 3 receiver sets last year too. They had Chase Claypool, George Pickens, like Deontay Johnson, Pat F, and like Najee. Like, so it makes sense. I don't think that's a bad take for at all for any of those guys. And if you think all 3 of those weapons plus the running back plus the tight end is talented, like that just benefits Watson. So
exactly. Like if I like all the pieces, and if they're there's no excuses for him this year. And I know like he was terrible last year, did not look good. Obviously the year off and stuff. And so,
I mean,
and I get it. Like if people don't want to take him, I totally understand. I would be there with you, but it's fantasy, so I'm gonna do that. And yeah, I think he's a guy I'll have a decent amount of.
and Brissett had success there. Like that's it. Like if Brissett can have success behind that strong O line, then there's no reason why you don't think Deshaun. Not to include like his ability to run,
Yeah.
like so it is fair. I think that's a great take, and I have nothing against it. All the night, and I was like, I should take more Deshaun Watson. Something about me just won't let me do it.
It's a tough click. It is. It's tough to root for, so I get it. But
so my first one would, for at least from the quarterbacks, would be Russell Wilson, which is God, like it feels terrible saying that. Russell
yeah.
Wilson, like everyone's just like signing off to like this fucking guy, like no, thank you. Like he's quarterback 17, right? If you followed any of my work at Fantasy Six Pack, you can still pull it up. You can hold receipts against me. I'm not a Wilson guy. Like I was never a Russell Wilson guy the last 2 years. He gets carried a lot, I think, by things that are hard to redo. But that's because he was quarterback 7 in 2021, quarterback 9 in 2022. You're talking about quarterback 17. Like Russell Wilson at quarterback 17 is just really strong right now. And I think, like I talk about when people say it's like, do you not like the player? Like I think the player is great. I just don't think the value is there at quarterback 5, quarterback 7, quarterback 9. But at quarterback 17, you're taking around Derek Carr. And the one thing I'll say Russ has is he still has solid weapons. We saw him at the end of the year pass more, get better with that crappy offense and Nathaniel Hackett. They didn't have a run game. Not having a run game is more detrimental to your pass game than most people agree with. Like, will understand because they just play a different coverage to you. They're not scared of Chase Edmonds. They're not just, they hope Melvin Gordon goes out there to fumble the ball to them. So, like, it's just the way it is, right? Jerry Jeudy really started taking off. Greg Dulcich took off a bit. Even when Albert O was on playing, like he was pretty fine. Sutton still had 800
Tim
yards.
Patrick will be back. I mean, I know it's
Tim Patrick will be back. KJ Hamler was out last year. And then Carlos still had 800 yards.
He got another surgery, right? KJ Hamler. I think he might be.
So like that season did not go the way they thought it was going to go. And Russ can still move. Russ is moving maybe for like 400 yards on ground. He's not like a real runner, but he's a scrambler. He might get 2 rushing touchdowns. It's going to be minor. But at quarterback 17 against the Raiders for 2 games, against Kansas City for 2 games, against like the Chargers for 2 games, You cannot tell me at quarterback 17 that that's not someone worth taking a shot on to be your second quarterback on your team. Like I would have no qualms rocking like a Kirk Cousins to Russell Wilson and to like Russell Wilson. I think in 3 quarterback sets, I'm totally fine with that. Which then leads to one of my wide receiver takes, and it's going to be half of them. It's Marcus Callaway. I think Marcus Callaway, he's a former Saint. He's going to go back with his Saints former head coach. Sean Payton, I think, is part of the reason why he wants him there. And when your people are going to say like, hey, like what is he going to do? I'm like, he's going to take over some type of role. I think it's possibly like he's undrafted. KJ Hamler, you said, right? Another surgery. Tim Patrick is going off his ACL tear, and they need a deep threat, someone that can really just be a field stretcher. Marcus Callaway was the best receiver for the Saints in one of his years, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he was actually still pretty efficient last year. So if they go to 3 receiver sets for Russell Wilson, give him a deep threat.
Yeah,
I like to look at Callaway if they don't draft anyone, because this team can't really afford to draft a receiver right now. They don't have 3rd round picks, I believe, and whatever the case after. So I would be targeting Callaway if you're looking for that random boom bust for correlation, random boom bust for stacking. If we see things go better for him, camp. So that's my first quarterback and my one half of my receivers. And I know people are even like Callaway, gross. I get it, but he was pretty good last year too, even though he didn't touch the field too much.
That's fair. And you brought up the draft there, and I want to kind of talk about my next quarterback. Kind of goes into that, and what we're going to do next week while we're drafting BBMs, which is so cool to say. We're going to be drafting BBMs next week, and who knows what other tournament they might launch as well. But we're going to revisit this list at the first part of the show and see like if any of our takes on these players is just immediately like gone because of what happens at the draft. And one of those for me that could happen and is Ryan Tannehill. Like I think a lot of the signs right now are pointing to him being back with Tennessee. And like it's gross and it's not fun, but he's going as QB 31. And I just think he's a guy that, like, again, when you're building 3 QB teams, it's more of a game theory play. If you know he's locked in as a Titan starter, which again we don't know yet, the draft could change a lot. They could trade for Trey Lance. Like there's still a lot to figure out. But if he comes back as the Titan starter and you're tacking him onto 3 QB builds, I think that's totally fine. Like, we've seen good seasons from Ryan Tannehill, good fantasy seasons. And again, part of my correlation or that the stacking is Treylon Burks. I'm in on him.
You just can't never get away from it.
I can't. Who else
can't get away from it. Like,
who else are they throwing to in Tennessee but Treylon Burks? I get like Chig showed a little bit, and so I'm in on Treylon Burks. I thought he flashed last season. Every Titans game I watched or caught a piece of, like he would always make like 1 or 2 like quote unquote special plays a game, in my opinion. And so year 2 breakout, like it's all the signs are there for me. Now the offense we definitely have some concerns about, but as my second or more so probably my 3rd or 4th wide receiver on a build, I'm totally fine with taking Treylon Burks. And even if they draft a receiver early, that could be okay for him. Like, take some of the pressure off of him. So he's a guy that I'll be on, and he could even drop a couple rounds if they take a 1st or 2nd round receiver. And so if that happens, I'm going to be even more in on him. So yeah, kind of the Tannehill and Treylon Burks. I know it's it's the Titans offense. Like we think they're going to be bad, but I've gotten in trouble in the past of thinking teams are going to be bad and then ignoring them. And so yeah, give me some Treylon Burks.
I'm not in on Tannehill. I love Tannehill as a Dolphins fan. I'm even wearing my Dolphin pants right now, which is like great. But you're right. Like if he after the draft he's still that lead quarterback, then he has to be drafted, right? Like you have to have him, at least on some teams. And he runs. He still runs. He does his little finger ball flick, which I love, by the way. So I think there's a ton of value in that. And I think Treylon at quarterback, wide receiver 37 is like pretty strong.
Yeah.
There's not many teams I've ever seen that like just didn't have like, any good receivers, right? Or even the bad receivers. Like when Trevor Lawrence was his rookie year, even they had fantasy relevant players. So that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's a really good way to go for that.
You already know this, but this was me last year. Like this has got me in trouble. I thought the Seahawks were going to be terrible. I thought they were going to have the number 1 pick in the draft. We were going to be talking about yeah, exactly. We did. And so that's why like we talked about this a little bit off stream too. Like they're, some people like to play, I don't know what the term is, but like hyper, like, I can't think of it, but like where they like to X out teams completely from their player pool. And I just don't believe in that. It's not the way I draft. And so like you said, there's gonna be fantasy usable players on every team. And now obviously price has got to depend, but again, it's a second year young wide receiver who flashed in his rookie season. Um, I'm totally fine with that.
Before we go to the next one, just a heads up. If you guys don't know, Hope in the channel has got her own promo code now.
Yeah.
So we have to give a shout out to that. If you do sign up with them, and I get it, a lot of you guys are friends and family, but Underdog Fantasy promo code Hope. Check it out. You'll get your match. She gets her portion too, which is cool. But if you are signing up, that's the way to go. And you get to see Hope's pick'ems now. I'm so stoked for that. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you guys, I'm sure everyone watching is already playing on Underdog, but if you're not for some reason, yeah, it'd be nice if you use my promo code
I
and
mean, it
helps
also
out the
helps your
show.
friends too. If they use the promo codes from us, it's higher than they would from an average person. So like if you're getting your
Absolutely.
friends into UD and they need that extra boost, like this is the way to go. Also,
Absolutely.
like, subscribe, share with your friends, get them into best ball. Best ball is way better than anything you got going on that isn't maybe Dynasty, which is
No, it's way better than Dynasty.
exactly. All right. So
Who's your next quarterback?
My second quarterback, I have all the gross ones, man. Like
You do.
Matthew Stafford is my second quarterback. He's quarterback 23. And I have to put like the parentheses and be like, he's quarterback 23. Like Matthew Stafford, we know he's the least talented. He had a bad year last year, but like the Rams as a whole, like had a bad year. Their O-line sucked, their defense sucked, their run game sucked until like week 13. Like it was just shitty, like straight out. But here's the one thing: if things just get back on track in any way, shape, or form, and they're 80% of what they were, Matthew Stafford is just a value at quarterback 23. This quarterback 23 means that he could be your third QB most of the time, right? When people go, well, QB 12 to QB 24, like at QB 23, like he's your third quarterback most of the time. And to top it off, he has like the easiest weapons to stack, including Cooper Kupp, right? Like Cooper Kupp is like getting passed up in drafts these days. And I'll admit I'm passing him here and there, and I take Tyreek Hill and
I've been taking Tyreek.
Whatever. But you can stack him with his Cooper Kupp. You can stack them with Van Jefferson. You can stack them with Higbee. You can stack them if they add another receiver. You can go weird and get Tutu Atwell. Like you can really stack these weapons, and it's going to be great. And this defense has gone significantly worse, and they're still in a high-powered, division. They still go get Seattle. Still got to go get the 49ers. Like Cardinals, maybe not as much, but Stafford himself has always been a passer. You're looking for a guy that gets you 200 yards, 250. You're talking about 2 touchdowns a game, right? Like that's still bottom line fantasy relevancy on a floor. But this is also Stafford, like the gunslinging guy. So he might get you 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He gets you a 3-touchdown game. It doesn't matter. He's contributing and he's costing you legitimately nothing. And I said this a couple like 2 months ago, and I was like, one of the guys I just didn't take, and I feel like it's gonna bite me when I have my quarterback 3 is Mac Jones and his quarterback 3 is Matthew Stafford, them. And I'm like, that sucks. Like I don't want to go against Matthew Stafford or Mac Jones.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it stings. Because I played it. Well, I don't know if he's gonna be good. We don't know anything. So that's
I'm with you. I kind of played it on the I don't know if he retires game. And that was something too. Like it seems all signs are pointing that he's gonna play. But that's still something to slightly monitor. But yeah, if we know that Stafford's in and he's playing, and he's a good pick, especially QB 23. I think that's a great pick. So my next guy's an ambiguous QB situation, and so we might not know, until later in the offseason between Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett. But I just kind of wanted to bring up the point of this is kind of in that Geno Smith vein where we didn't know Drew Lock, Geno Smith. But an offense that has weapons, no matter how gross we think the quarterbacks might be, and I know there's some people who really like Sam Howell, and he definitely showed a lot in that one game he played, and Jacoby was fine for Cleveland last year as well. But like we know good weapons can elevate a bad quarterback, and having Jahan Dotson, having Terry McLaurin, there's some rumors they're going to take a tight end in the first round. You've got Bieniemy coming in to call plays. I think that those weapons and plus whatever they add in the draft, whether it's the tight end or they could add another receiver. Like, I think those guys, and they're going to go at the very end of drafts as your QB3 on a team. I'm excited for those guys, especially if Howell wins the job. I'm a little bit more excited. But still, I think the Commanders' QB situation, again, you might have to wait a little bit until we know more about who starts. You know, it's maybe more of like a July type thing where you start taking them because they're still going to go, like, regardless of when we find out who they're leaning to as the starter, they're going to be 16, 17, 18th round picks. Like, it's not going to be a thing like that. And if you're doing a 3 QB build, I think it's an easy third quarterback to go along. And it's another, team that's easy to stack as well.
Yeah, I mean, their first receiver is like 5th round. And then everybody else after that's like round 9, dead round. Like, it just goes like round 9, then the dead rounds. And I think that's a really good one to go with too. I'm on the Hal train, but I think like the Brissett trade isn't bad considering what he did last year. I think people can be sold on it. It's just good weapons, right? Like, you have to be really terrible to mess this up. And even Carson Wentz, as terrible as he was last year, at some parts, still had like 4 of the best quarterback weeks in the first 4.
He scored like 35 points in week 1, right?
Like, he just went off. Like, I was looking like a genius right now with Carson Wentz. Like, yeah, like, let's go. And then he like just gets hurt because he's Carson Wentz. And, but like, he went off. Like, the weapons are so strong there. So I don't disagree.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the thing I missed with Geno Smith, right? Is having the DK Metcalf, having Tyler Lockett. They drafted a running back, but I was just in on the train like a lot of people were. The Seahawks are going to be terrible. They're going to have the number 1 pick. Boom, they make the playoffs. And so that's something I just don't want to avoid, or I do want to avoid happening again, is where I'm too overly confident. Like, you want to have some player takes and you want to obviously analyze these teams as best as we can. But when it's the last few rounds, you can easily get stuck in your same clicks. It's easy for me to take Mac Jones because I know he's going to start. Like, this happened last year. Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, these quarterbacks we kept taking at the end of drafts when we could have Geno Smith, right? And so stuff like that is something I'm trying to get better at and avoid doing as much this year.
I mean, I would even just throw in the last fact of the matter. It's like there are 3 receivers if they were on any other team. They were with Patrick Mahomes. People would be like, oh my God, Terry McLaurin, you got Curtis Samuel, you got Jahan Dotson. Like, people would just go nuts with that receiving core, right? So I think when we have to look at it, it's just the weapons are good. Even if the quarterback himself isn't relevant, like, there's no such thing as, and I'm not that as far as I can think of, maybe besides 2014 or 2013 Chiefs, where there was 0 fantasy relevancy on an entire team. But Jamal Charles was still good that year, right? Like, there's always somebody, always. And the one-offs are great to have because you don't need correlation on every part of your team, but you do need to have like just straight up good players. So just buy that value if you can. My last quarterback, a little boring, but it's a guy I pumped up last year quite a bit. Quarterback 13, Daniel Jones. And I introduced it as quarterback 13 because it's quarterback 13. That means there's like 12 guys that are actively being taken ahead of him that I don't think have the upside that Jones has. And, with like Mariota last year, or these runners, like these guys that just put 50 yards on the ground, rush 1 touchdown in, that's 11 points. That is more work than throwing 200 yards. That's more work than 200 yards. And I think I want to say passing a touchdown, because that's about the equivalent of 50 on the ground and 6 running in. So Daniel Jones was like such a monster last year. Do I think he takes a major step forward in passing? Probably not. But we know what he is. He's a guy that's willing to run the ball 5 to 7 times a game, gets 40, 50 yards on the ground. He throws in 2 touchdowns and he gets 50 on the ground. That's the equivalent of 3 touchdowns. Like, that itself is an equivalent of 3 touchdowns and then some. And if he does anything else with the yardage, you're looking at contribution week. You're looking at a potential spike. You're looking at a guy that can compete with Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, without paying any of those prices. Like, and when I look at Justin Herbert, what he did last year, and I look at Daniel Jones, there's a automatically given better player for fantasy relevancy. And so sign me up for Daniel Jones, and I can sit there and pitch a narrative of, oh, Darren Waller's there. He's getting his weapons. Isaiah, all these guys back, but it's not that. It's about the fact that the man runs.
Yeah.
It's about the fact that his offensive coach is going to be on there for another year with him. This coach is that worked from last year, that gave him success, is going to be there one more year. And that O-line, I think, is going to take another step forward because they did take a step forward last year. So sign me up for that. We have to see what the Saquon news is. I do think it alleviates a little bit for Daniel Jones and sets him up for a different kind of success. But yeah,
Right.
sign up for Daniel Jones. Like, it's a way to compete without paying for a top 12 quarterback against the top 12 quarterbacks.
I mean, we just saw it in week 17, right? Like, he put up 36 points.
He put 24, 28, 36. Like, it gets it done.
Yeah.
So it's insane to me.
Yeah, I love the call. I mean, I think a lot of people, to be fair, are in on Daniel Jones this year now after seeing last year and how much he ran. But yeah, it's still seeing like that QB 13. That's a good point. Like, he's someone who could finish like as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Like, it could happen. It's not probably likely because of the passing efficiency. But like you said, then you bring in the arguments for Waller's there. There's a lot of rumors, they're interested in a wide receiver at the back of the first round or in the second. And so his weapons are improved. They got all the slot receivers they signed. Like, someone's going to, jump up out of that. So,
and rushing is just such a big deal, right? Like, that's
so
what it comes down to. As the person, as someone's in our chat, like Geno Smith getting us 20, 30 yards on the ground, like, adds up. It really does. So I don't think that he finishes high into like the QB5 zone, but even if he's QB10, QB13, it doesn't matter because he gets you those spike weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Gonna move on to running back. My first one is one that a lot of people are in on now, but I think so. This is more like a strategy one for when these tournaments first open. Is Zach Charbonnet? I think he has a legit chance to be like a 3-down back. I think he's great on the ground. He's good through the air as well. And so it's one of those things where like he's at RB 30 is where he ended up. I think if he gets into a situation where it looks clear that he's got the role, I think if you're planning to jump in these tournaments right when it opens, he might be a good guy to look at to grab, if you can get him at his current ADP, because I think he will rise up depending on where he goes in the draft. Now, if he goes to like Tampa and there's him and Rashad White, then that may not be the case. I've seen that kind of floated that they would be interested in him. But if he goes somewhere where it looks like he's the clear guy there and he's drafted with that capital, I think jumping on him in those first few drafts you jump in is something to look at.
I laugh. I'm not gonna lie, so stupid.
I like it.
I mean, Zach Charbonnet is a big hot person right now. Funny thing is, RB30, right? Like, use that RB30 for a guy that could likely be a top 24 running back being drafted. And 6 picks with some people won't matter, but
I mean, that's be
value, right?
2,
like
3 rounds, right?
Value. Yeah, it's half a round. And that could be multiple rounds given where RB6 to RB24 to RB30 is. So
yeah,
it's a good value. And I think that we'll see where he goes. I will say at the end of the day, I can't think of many offenses where I think he just falls out of RB30 because there's a lot of condensedness at that parts of the draft. And we know that younger RBs are kind of like the hot commodity, right? Certain roles work well. I think Charbonnet is can be a 3-down guy possibly, or at least have the role of a 3-down guy in some cases. So that makes a ton of sense.
I think, the one thing, if he goes to a Tampa or like a Dallas in the second round or something,
that'd be so tough.
Yeah, like those 2 situations, like there's a chance he could go down, but yeah, it's all draft dependent. But yeah, he's someone I like, and
I mean, I would, if he stays at ADP and he goes to like Dallas, I'd take him. I would take him at like RB30 because we saw what they want to do. We saw, and he's likely going to be that goal line guy. Like, people are probably still going to be sold on Pollard. Like, Pollard will probably drop a round or 2. But if I can get Tony Pollard of like, if I can get Zeke of last year at round 10, like, that's still value. Like, you're talking about 70 yards on a touchdown.
Yeah, and you hope that he can be a lot better than that. But I don't know. That's going to be tough because I think they're going to – it would be tough if he went to Dallas and stayed the same ADP for me. I would want him to drop like a round or so.
Fair enough. I still think that there's a lot of use of versatility on that. And as long as you know, like, at the end of the day, that he will likely get production, right? I think that's the case for that one. I think with Tampa, like, we don't know if he gets production out there because Tampa could be absolutely terrible. So
who's your first running back?
Zach Charbonnet. Mine is AJ Dillon, RB36. And I talk about Dillon a little bit here and there. And I know he's been like AJ December, like, it's what he is. He's this guy that is – he caught like 30 to 40 receptions last year on pace 2. He catches about 30, 40 receptions a year. He's an up the gut type of player. whatever Jordan Love is going to have to deal with, whether they get a new receiver or not, we know he's inexperienced, and that team runs. There's a reason Aaron Jones is still on this team. There's a reason they restructured to keep him there. There's a reason AJ Dillon's still on this team. I don't see him taking another running back to replace them. They're very much a thunder lightning combo type of situation, and AJ Dillon is just durable, man. He for the most part, he gets less touches. He still gets 200 touches at RB36. So about 200 plus touches at RB36 for 800 to 1,000 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. That's just value buys. And we saw it last year every single week in the playoffs. That man was putting up, 14 to 20 points a game until I think the final week he missed a touchdown, but still got like 100 on scrimmage or something. So it's, sign me up for freaking AJ Dillon. There's no pizzazz on it, but like the fact of the matter was, this is a guy that people took in round 6 last year, and now you're getting him in like round 13, round 12. That's just a scoop. That's a scoop up buy. You can have him do into your RB0 combos. You can have him in your anchors. You can even do them in dual elites. You take 2 elites off the top, round 2, round 3, grab 2 elite running backs. You grab Chubb, Henry, and then 9 rounds later, throw in AJ Dillon. Right? Like, I think there's just so much that you can do with him at his price, and he fits almost like every type of roster.
Yeah.
Short of like robust, right? Like at that point, robust is doing robust things, but
yeah,
he's just so strong, and he fits what the current meta of drafting best ball is.
I like that. With the younger, inexperienced, I guess he's been in the NFL for a while, inexperienced quarterback though. But yeah, the contingent upside, with Aaron Jones being there, of course, the running back position, if he goes down, I think AJ Dillon is always a good pick, especially better in half PPR, like you said. All right, I'm gonna go next with a guy that I feel like it just doesn't get talked about after he signed, but like Miles Sanders with the Panthers, I think he is a really good one, especially like for your second RB on a team. We know he has the connection with the RB coach there. I don't know. He just feels like a forgotten guy for me in these tournaments. I feel like everyone loves Penny, loves talking about Penny and what he might could do with the Eagles. But Miles
Damian
Sanders,
Harris, David Montgomery.
which Miles Sanders is going a little bit ahead of those guys, to be fair. But it's funny now, like the last draft I was in the big board, he went in the same round as Dameon Pierce. And, I like Miles Sanders better than him. And there's concerns that Bijan Robinson is going to get drafted to the Texans at 12. So I think Miles Sanders is just super solid. You've got a young quarterback. You're going to pick number 1 in Bryce Young. Like leaning on the run game. They had an improved offensive line last year. I think Miles Sanders is a great pick for like that's so your second RB and maybe even third RB on a team. I think he's really solid.
So I mean, we know what it is, right? He got paid. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Follow the money, all that's cliches, but the dude got paid like a lot to go and be a guy. Is he going to be the guy? Who knows? But I will say this much for the Panthers is they know how to use their running backs. I don't think they've had a non-relevant fantasy running back in like the last 4 years. And I really mean.
I mean, it's a different coaching staff now, to be fair.
True, but I still think organizations kind of hire and do a certain way, kind of the same generally. Like Mike Davis had relevancy there. Chuba Hubbard has had relevancy. Deontay Foreman, CMC, like. Miles Sanders is better than like the majority of them, short of CMC, which is like the best running back, right? They paid him to be the guy, and I think that's probably as the best you could say. They paid him to be the guy. Chuba has behind him, who we know is what Lester Sanders, right? Like he's just good enough.
He's fine.
So, and I see myself every draft. I'll see Miles Sanders. I'm always like, I'm skipping him. I'm gonna go pick up like Brian Robinson 4 rounds later, but I don't think that's always the right play because you need the exposures. You need the guys that maybe they paid him to be a 3-down guy. Who knows? So
you look at the guys who went right in his same range. So like there's some guys I do think have a higher ceiling, like Aaron Jones went in the same round as him, or Dalvin Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs. But the guys that go right after him within 5 picks, Isaiah Pacheco, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery. Like, I think he has just a clearer path as any of those guys to having a really good fantasy season. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, follow the money as well is huge there.
I mean, like, so Aaron Jones is like RB17, and then you're talking Miles Sanders RB21, right? He's being drafted right ahead of like Javonte Williams, who I would not take Javonte Williams.
No.
He's drafted ahead of, Isaiah Pacheco, who I think you could argue that's going to be who knows with Pacheco, what's going on over there. It's a good thing to bring up.
And then
that,
even David Montgomery, right? Like we like him, and we like again another follow the money, and we're not so sure that they love DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift's still a really good running back, and is going to take away from him if he's on the team, and so
versus Chuba Hubbard, right? Like
yeah,
that's the main guy.
exactly.
So, like I
Versus
said, I
those.
see myself passing on him all the time, and I have to admit, like I need to, like chill on that.
Yeah, no, he's
And
not
he
a guy
can
like
pass.
I don't want like 20% Miles Sanders or anything. But I think, if you're in that range and like you're wanting to strengthen your RBs and like he's the second guy on the team, I think he's totally fine.
And you can double tap him too, honestly. And when we talk about these single picks, we don't mean like you just take them and you move on. If I'm at 12, 13 or the 1, 2, and I can just double tap like a Sanders, Montgomery, like that's actually not terrible.
No.
Like if your receivers are set in the first 5 rounds and you double tap to Sanders, Montgomery, like I don't think that's bad.
That's a good start to a 0 RB team, I think.
Exactly.
Or even if you took an anchor and then you hammered receiver, the next 5 or 6 rounds, like it'd be a really strong group. So
mine, and God, I hate my pick so much. James Conner, like RB31. He's RB31. Like that's the first thing I'm gonna say off the bat. Like it's RB31. It's James Conner. Like do we like him? Do we not? I'll be like, honestly, I don't really care for James Conner. But here's the thing: as any of those guys are, like he's got a role. He's proven over years now, years, that he is a good player. Like he's good. A little injury prone, sure, but he got touchdowns week after week after week. He catches. He's being utilized as a 3-down back. And you can say, well, what's the numbers for that? Well, week 10, 24 touches. Week 12, 28 touches. Week 14, 21 touches. Like the guy gets a ton of touches, and he got a touchdown. I want to say 6 weeks straight. 6 weeks straight, he got a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like those are insane numbers, and we're telling people that, oh, well, they don't have Kyler Murray. They didn't have Kyler Murray all those games last year either, and he still did well. Like you got to get credit where credit's due, and I passed on a lot of Connor, and I feel kind of dumb about it. So you're talking about RB31 for right now with the meta the way it is. You can stack these receivers up. You can double tap yourself into a Connor. Don't let him go by. like it's value. We know this offense is going to run through him. There's a reason why he's still on this team.
Right. I'm going to answer this real quick. I just going off what I did last year, my highest percentage guy was about 20%, but that's not like a hard and fast rule. If I get up to 25% on a guy, that's totally fine. I'm not someone who's going to have like 40 or 50%. That's just not the way I draft, but 20% is usually my highest exposed guy. But I don't have a hard and fast rule on that.
I'm the worst at this. I had like a 50% Metcalf last year. And that was just because I was memeing at some point. I just really want to prove a point to people that one, you could overexpose and fail with a pick or hit, and it wouldn't really change it too much unless they're like the number one guy. Because people do have like a big, like, oh my God, if you're drafting the same, like no one's necessarily drafting the same because you get put in a different situation every draft. I look at 25, maybe 30% if I see like that's my guy in that round. And even 30%, you'll say that's a ton. Well, that's realistically 1 in like 3 point-ish drafts that I'm getting this person. So I still find a way to mix them up. I don't do this for high rounds. I think anyone in the top 4 rounds, I try to keep it under 20%. I don't have enough talent to say this out of this first round that 4 of these guys suck, right? Like there's no way I'm going to get that right. And round 2, I think you get a little bit better. Round 3, you get a little bit better. Thanks, Chris. But like round 2, round 3, you get a little bit better at these. Like round 2, like I just faded complete Debos. I took a bunch of Tyreek. I took a bunch of Chubbs, a bunch of Saquons. Like that you can get down to, but the more the rounds trickle, and I recommend you looking at Tom's article for like how he does exposures. He did this for Fantasy Pros last year. The further the rounds are, you could be a little bit more into overexposing yourself because the deep rounds change like crazy, and you end up with a lot of Zay Jones or a lot of DPJ. But do mix it up a little bit. So yeah, 25-30%. That's what I recommend as the peak. And even then, I would keep that to like 5 players tops. Like I kept mine, I think, to like 5 or 7 last year for the higher end guys. I'm not telling anyone to take the same exact, the 87%, like, Najee Harris or somebody we know. So
right.
Like, I'm not doing that because you're telling me that you believe the other 11 guys are just that bad in the first round. I would never do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna move on to my next wide receiver here. I have Jordan Addison down. I think he's a guy that's kind of gotten a little lost. I think when we started draft season, it was Addison, JSN, but then there's Quentin Johnson's now on the scene. Everyone loves, Zay Flowers. Like, there's so many receiver. Jalen Hyatt's even still there a little bit, but I am still in on Jordan Addison. And look, this is a bit of a wishful take of we think he's going to go to the Chargers. That's what we're hoping to happen on draft night. There's been some pretty significant buzz about him to the Chargers, which would just be the perfect landing spot. As we know, it's like kind of the heir to Keenan there, but I really like Jordan Addison as a player. His size is a little bit concerning, and the fact, I wish he would have tested a little better. But I think it's an overall talent and what the Chargers need and look for. I'm excited about Jordan Addison.
No, I mean that's fair. And we talked about like shows a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, do you want these production ready guys, right? Like, do they have to be burners? No. Like, I think we get left out a lot of, and I'm glad that like NFL advanced community has talked about this a bit more. Is like this guy knows how to sit in zone. This guy knows how to do minor separation. He knows how to just be a good player. And we see guys like this succeed, right? You're talking about Keenan Allen, you're talking about Michael Pittman. And although I'm not the biggest Pittman guy, but if Michael Pittman went at wide receiver, 45, I would draft all of the Pittman, right? Like that's what we want. We want these guys that can at least get flex points. And at wide receiver 45, that's a flex buy like all day. A flex buy with wide receiver two indications. Like I got nothing against that. I am concerned where he goes though, but he can't end up on a lot of teams.
He'll be someone we'll discuss next week, on the show once we know where all these guys go, and especially since I said a couple rookies.
The stuff can he run?
Can he run a hitch
route? Basically, like that's what it is. My first receivers, I think I talked about was Callaway earlier, half of it. But I'll talk about the other half. Well, actually, I'll skip that. I'll wait for yours. But Jahan Dotson, like I know that Hope has talked about Commanders quarterbacks, but I love Jahan Dotson. I think no matter who starts, whether it's Howell, whether it's Brissett, I think they're going to have to rely on Jahan Dotson. He's the red zone guy. He's taking lesser coverage. I mean, the way to look at this is that out of all the three quarterbacks that played with them last year, they all gave Jahan Dotson a touchdown, or he got a touchdown with all three of them. And I think Terry McLaurin, as good as he is, he has shown that he's a little bit weak in the 5 and the 10 yards out. And I think Dotson is going to succeed there. If they don't get a tight end to this team, I think that Jahan Dotson's like the heir apparent to be like a red zone target guy when they're outside of the 5, when they can't hand the ball to Ryder Robinson. And he's wide receiver 41. Like, I'm picking these deeper guys down here because it's like this is where you get your value, I think. Like, you're getting, 60, 80 yards out of Jahan Dotson and a touchdown. And Jahan Dotson's is a deep threat guy. I think his average yards per game when he was actually used was above 60. So if he's doing any work, which once again, that could be a toss-up, it's going to be solid. Just to put it in perspective for a guy that missed a bunch of games due to injury, he comes back, right? He misses week 5 to week 9, comes back, starts off a little slow, but then he goes 9 targets, 5 receptions, 54 yards, 4 receptions, 105 yards, 6 receptions, 76 yards, 3 receptions, 72 yards. Right. 3 receptions, on average, this guy is putting up 25 yards per catch, or is finishing with those kind of numbers, and that's absolutely gross. So I want this type of player on my team in half PPR with red zone. He had 7 touchdowns last year. 7, and he missed 5 games. That's insane.
Yeah, he was super efficient, and you could also make the argument about regression potentially for being that efficient with touchdowns in the games he played, of course. But it's a second year too, a second year wide receiver, and that's gonna be my next guy too, is a second year wide receiver, or my last one, in Tyquan Thornton. Again, wide receiver 78, and I get it. The Patriots offense, it sucks. It's probably still gonna suck even with Bill O'Brien. But he's a guy that's just going to be out there on every play. He showed a little bit last year. He had a couple he was on Karane's winning team, I believe he scored in week 17. It was on that team's final, score. And he had a couple of games too where he got, designed plays around the goal line because of his speed and chances to score like that. And so I think a wide receiver 78, getting a young guy, a second-year player that's going to be out there running all the routes, is super exciting, especially for like, best ball when we're wanting those big spike weeks. I like Tyquan Thornton that late.
Boo, boo. No, so I can't. It's that I'm booing you because like I'm on the other side. I still think it's Kendrick Bourne for me. So my other half is going to be like these two super dead receivers, Corey Davis, Kendrick Bourne. These guys are going late, like, and they're like the wide receiver three, semi deep threats for their team. Like, so right off the bat, like you said, for Tyquan Thornton, it's like he's a second year receiver. His room is empty, so I want who Mac Jones has gone to when he could. I think Matt Patricia just didn't like Kendrick Bourne. I think Bill probably doesn't like him either.
Yeah, I don't
but they
think Bill
still
likes
stuck
him
with
either.
them for like 8 years. They're stuck with him like $6-8 million. So I think they're gonna try him out one more year. He's healthier than Devontae Parker, who is perpetually injured. So sign me up for like Kendrick Bourne, and which then leads to my
I
second
can't do it.
hater, just a hater. But yeah, he also helped. What's his face? Pat win. Kendrick Bourne was on Pat's team, so
It was Jacoby and
Jacoby.
Tyquan, I believe.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right. Somebody else had Kendrick Bourne. They got to the finals, but he got like 22 points, I think, in one of the playoff games.
He did have one good playoff game. I remember that.
So I'll sign up for that. And then Corey Davis is my next one on there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers at this point. Aaron Rodgers on his team. I don't care about Michael Harmon. You want this deep threat. Aaron Rodgers is more mobile than most quarterbacks, even at his older age, and plays extension. You're talking about 3 wide receiver sets. If I think who's out there, it's going to be Garrett Wilson. It's going to be freaking Alan Lazard, my other buddy. But then Corey Davis and McCole Harmon, who's going to be out there. I think Corey Davis, with the money he's paid, Corey Davis, with the way they like him and the way he dominates in camp. If you ever watch any camp videos for Corey Davis, he dominates in camp. And we saw this last year too. He was relevant with every quarterback out there. Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco. Like, he's shown on the team that he can be good. Can he be healthy is another issue. But you're talking about pick 18. You're talking about like round 18 picks. This guy doesn't even have an ADP. Sign me up for some Corey Davis to go with some Aaron Rodgers for these like random spike weeks. If you cannot get Garrett Wilson, if you want to get these like pseudo stacks. And to top it off, correlation for these teams, right? You're talking about the Bills. You're talking about the Dolphins. So I want that. I want these guys on there. So I want those strong divisions.
Yeah, I think your logic is sound there. He's not for me. I don't know. I'm going to need to see more about what develops in camp and what they do moving forward. But Corey Davis is, I don't know, he's tough. Like every year I feel like we do this. And I know, again, he had some contribution weeks last year. I just think they brought in Lazard over him. I'm not sure how much he's going to actually see the field. And so he's a tough one for me right now. But again, if something develops, if he's more solidified, we get word on that, then I could see it. And it's round 18, right? If you're stacking, if you've got Aaron Rodgers and you've got Garrett Wilson, you want to double stack it, I'm fine with that. I don't know. He's someone I'm not going into the season like thinking about him, but I can kind of get it from your perspective there.
My whole thing is just not to forget about him is what it comes down to.
This is also a thing too. I've heard that a lot. He's a big cut candidate.
It's a possibility. I think his cap hurts them still a bit if they cut him. And I think that's a possibility. It really is. I think McCole Hardman is that idea guy to go in there. But I think if you're sitting on him, like there's a good chance this guy could play. They've talked about him, I think, a little bit on the offseason already about like what they like about Corey Davis. And he's still cheaper than most receivers right now. I think he's a total cost of like 12 million, right? And we saw a bunch of really bad receivers get paid 10 to 15. So.
That's fair. I mean, even if he does get cut, I guarantee he will be on another team. So it could end up working out. He could go somewhere where he might get a better role. But yeah, I'm gonna have to see him actually be on the Jets to pick him in that mode or where he ends up. But I don't know. That's one we're gonna agree to disagree on moving forward. But we'll see. If more information comes out, I'm always open to changing opinions on players and situations. So we'll see there. Tight end for me. We talked a little bit about Njoku already, but again, just a super fun player. I think he really came on last year, and I'm excited for him. But my other tight end was Hayden Hurst. Again, it's a gross name, but he had a pretty good season with the Bengals last year. He's going to have a rookie QB throwing him the ball in Carolina. And he goes, again, these are 18th round picks. And so getting someone who's established himself in the league versus I know everyone like loves these rookie tight ends. Rookie tight ends just don't do it. They just don't for me. And now Michael Mayer, like if he gets the draft capital, if he's the Cowboys starting tight end, that's a little different. But some of these other late guys who are rookies, I'm not as interested in. I don't think Darnell Washington, like he's fun, but I think he's going to be doing a lot of blocking in his NFL career. And so just getting Hayden Hurst out there, again, a safety blanket for a young QB who's proven himself in the league. I'm in on Hayden Hurst.
I feel like I fall for this one every year is Hayden Hurst. It's like he's like, oh, this guy, like he's a first round pick, and he kind of just, I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I'm not taking a ton of them. I feel like it's a little. I feel like I fall for him every year. When he was a Raven, when he was a Falcon, when he was when he was what was he last year? A Bengal. Like we just fall for him every year. I think at 25 though, like you're just podging something together, and he is someone I think it's 4 touchdowns or more kind of range. So there is some value in that because you're just buying touchdowns with your dead picks. And also just shout out to Garage Right. He was a 1 million cap. I had the 6 at 600K. He's actually at 600K for a dead cap. I think he gets a restructure of some sort for Corey Davis, by the way. Like I think it's something's gonna occur. But yeah, Hurst, I feel like
He'll be on an NFL team, even if he gets cut though. He'll be somewhere.
Yeah, but I guess like Hurst is one of those guys that just feel rough. I was gonna go with Jelani Woods. So and this is actually due to Hope kind of like shoving Will Levis down my throat right now. She's like, look at Will Levis this, Will Levis that. Like, do you like Will Levis? And I'm like, But she's right. Like I do crap on rookie quarterbacks a little bit. And I think that now that I've watched a little bit more about Will Levis, I'm a little bit more excited for what he can do. But which leads me to like Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods, like people forget, he's a 3rd round pick last year at tight end. 3rd round capital for a tight end is pretty good. Like it's pretty freaking good. And he's tight end like 29. So he's not like a guy that's being taken early enough. So he showed flashes last year. If someone like Will Levis goes out, or even Gardner Minshew plays, like we know Gardner likes to sling the ball. Jelani Woods is not a in-route type of guy. Like I catch it 2 yards out in the flats. Like he goes down the field, or he could go down the field. Like he has the potential to be this guy. His second year, coming time. We talk about we don't like rookie tight ends. This is a 2nd-year tight end. He showed flashes last year. He could move that step forward. He's still going to cost you nearly nothing. If Will Levis is there, Will Gardner Minshew's there, like I want whatever is going to be on that team. If I can't afford to pick up Pierce to stack with them, like Alec Pierce, I'll pick up Jelani Woods. And even if you're not getting the stack with Jelani Woods, I think tight end 29, put him in a 3 tight end set, even a 4 tight end set. We've seen the numbers do really well for advancement for playoffs. Got to get these kind of guys in where you can. And I think this is one of those guys I'm picking up rather than going for the names I know, like Noah Fant, for the 4th year in a row, like. Right. So, yes, I'm in for Jelani Woods right now. I'm kind of into him given his situation, given how that he's likely the better deep threat outside of but Michael Pittman and maybe right behind Alec Pierce.
Yeah, I like him. Again, another young player that flashed. Mo Alley-Cox, the legend.
Every year, every fucking year, Mo Alley-Cox.
But no, I'm with you again. Another young guy, year 2 guy who flashed. He did flash. He looked really solid last year in some of the games, and so I'm in with you on Jelani Woods. Do want to clarify my Levis. I do like Levis as a value in fantasy. I'm still very much question, his real life skill and talent. But again, we talked about this too. Like when it comes to the draft, like you never know with these quarterbacks. Like some of the guys we've had takes on who are going to be terrible NFL starting quarterbacks, Josh Allen, end up amazing. And so, like, at this point, like, I want to see where they land. I want to see what situation they go to. And then, from there, like,
I mean, he's a strong-armed quarterback,
being
right?
overconfident. Now, like, Josh Allen could just be the outlier, and he probably is, right? Like, he's the 1 in a million, the guy who wasn't, good at all. And turns out
like Levis is a, pretty strong-armed, pretty mobile. Yes. And I think tight ends usually benefit pretty well from those, like the kind of guys that kind of just get lost in the field. So, I mean, it makes sense. Like if he is a Colt, like you're right. Like maybe I should take some like more Jelani Woods for those type of situations. I mean, I like him with Gardner Minshew.
And again, with a rookie QB, safety blanket, again, the tight end, that old cliche, but I think that's a good one there. I think we touched on both my tight ends. I know you've got one more tight end on your list. I think it'll be our last guy to wrap things up with.
Mr. Dawson Knox, right? I feel like people felt like they got burned by him last year. And in some rights, you kind of did. He's tight end 12, and he finished as like tight end 13. I think that, like, this is the thing about Knox. When we're talking about like looking for that slot receiver or the second wide receiver too for the team, I actually think this person might be Knox most of the time. And last year was actually kind of a down year, but he finished with the same numbers that was his breakout year. The only difference was subtracting 3 touchdowns, but the yardage was nearly the same. The receptions were nearly the same, and he played a little bit less games.
The expectations were just higher, so that's why it felt disappointing.
We're super high on Knox, right? Like, oh my god, he's just gonna be like 800 yards. But here's the thing that Knox has going for him. Unlike most tight ends who are 7-yard, 8-9 yard receiving type guys, right? Like per reception, Knox actually averages like 12 to 13 yards per reception, and last year was a down year of like 11. So when I look at Knox, it's when Josh Allen is scrambling, who is he looking for, right? Like he can't really look for Gabe Davis because Gabe Davis doesn't know how to find things out there. Sometimes he's kind of just a 9 route guy. Knox is like, you'll see like these random Josh Allen runouts, and it's Knox who gets that. Knox is the guy that's 15 yards down the field. And I think with expectations tampered to what he is supposed to be doing, sign me up. Like this is probably one of those like lower mid-tier tight ends I think you can get that people are like a little down on because they feel burned. They feel like he's not the guy. But they're not going to, I don't think they're going to draft a tight end. So no one's going to take his job. I don't know if they even get a spot.
They paid him a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the guy there. So like Dawson Knox at tight end 12 to time, he finishes at those numbers. It's consistent. And at the end of the day, if Josh Allen's going to go into shootout mode, which he possibly can, as I said before, like you're talking about the Dolphins, you're talking about the Jets, like Knox is going to get his. And he had a down year last year and was still tight end 12 to 13.
Yeah, I love Dawson Knox. Again, he's a tight end. Like not many you can say have 2 touchdown upside, right? And so give me Dawson Knox. Give me that offense as well. And like you said, we'll see what they do. I think they will attempt to solve, the receiver position and bring in, whether it's Hopkins, whether it's draft someone. The Bills are definitely going to do that, in my opinion. But I don't think that takes away from Knox too much. And again, maybe he even slides a round or two. We'll see. But yeah, getting a tight end that has like true legit 2 touchdown upside is hard to come by. And so, yeah, tight end 12, absolutely.
I mean, you're not even just talking about touchdowns. It's like touchdowns plus like high yardage, right? Like he's a guy that could get like 3 catches for 50 yards or 45 yards. And that's huge. That's a major difference for the tight end one. Maybe not so much for like wide receivers or running backs, but you're talking about some of these one-off tight ends like Austin Hooper, who gets like 10 yards and a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Those extra 3 to 4 points and like advancement week is huge. I lost by so many teams in my playoffs because of like two points. So I think like Knox is like that minor edge that with the extra yardage per reception, it's huge for him, especially at his position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're out of guys there. That's gonna do it for our list. That was good.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm just kidding.
Let's go through every player.
Go through every freaking player.
And we'll give you yes or no on them. No, but I'm excited to look at this list again next week. After the draft happens, some of these rookies, where they go, if any of these veteran situation changes, the Titans draft a quarterback, it's here with the draft finally. 2 more sleeps, and we're here for the draft. And so, we won't be doing our normal Thursday show, obviously, because of the draft. Everyone go enjoy the draft. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I couldn't imagine trying to compete with the NFL draft with our stream. Like,
hey
guys, you guys want to hang out with us while we talking about best ball?
There's already a bunch of people doing shows of like just reacting to the picks and the fantasy stuff. So that'll be fun to watch some of those. But yeah, everybody go out and enjoy it. Me and Stephanie are gonna get together and watch it together here. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. What do you got going on the rest of this week, Davis, besides the NFL draft?
I am actually gonna have to miss a little bit of the draft. So I'm gonna have to watch somebody else's stream while I'm out. We're talking about, I don't know, maybe hang out. I have family coming in, so I'm gonna have I'm gonna be a little behind. But all I'm waiting for is BBM4 coming Monday, assumedly coming Monday.
Yeah.
I have money in the bank just ready to go out there. So terrible.
Yeah, we're gonna be firing. We might even go live Monday, do our first couple drafts of BBM on stream or something. We'll work out a schedule, the rest of this week. And of course, let you guys know. yeah, thank you all for hanging out. You know, if you don't mind dropping a like, dropping a sub, it does mean a lot. Yeah, hit the like, as Vapor says. And again, if anyone's not playing on Underdog yet, you know, I do have a promo code now, and so absolutely get, you know, your $100 matched. And so
No, don't ask them politely. Send it to your friends, okay? Send it to your friends.
So-
get them more money. Get us more money. Like okay, you're getting free content, right? So no, jokes aside, but seriously though, like,
oh, you guys,
you know
thanks
what
for
we
hanging
do.
out.
See you guys next week.